Have you ever stopped to think about what it would be like to die and then awaken in the arms of Jesus? Sophia, a nurse passionate about her work, led an ordinary life, filled with challenges and joys. But everything changed in a fateful instant when her car flipped over and her soul was transported to a celestial dimension. What Jesus revealed to her in that place has the power to transform her life and perhaps even her eternity. My name is Sofia Mendes. I am 34 years old and I am Brazilian. For almost a decade, I have been living in Lisbon, where I work as a nurse in a university hospital. I grew up in a Christian evangelical family in São Paulo. During my college years, I ended up distancing myself from the church, but somehow, my faith never completely faded away. During that time, I saw myself more as a cultural believer than someone who truly cultivated a deep relationship with Christ. The church was a part of my life on a few occasions throughout the year, especially on special dates. I used to pray from time to time, mainly when I needed something. However, everything changed drastically on January 12th of this year. That day, I was returning home after a long 12-hour shift at the hospital. That night, the rain was pouring heavily, making the streets of Lisbon slippery and gloomy. I remember feeling exhausted, but a radiant happiness accompanied me, as I would finally have 3 whole days off. My plans were simple, yet delightful. Sleep in, dive into some movies I had saved on my list, and maybe make a call to my family in Brazil. I was just a few kilometers from home when the unexpected happened. A truck, on a steep curve in front of me, lost control and slid toward my lane. I tried to swerve, but the road was extremely wet, making any maneuver difficult. I clearly remember the moment of impact. The deafening crash of metal colliding, the airbag inflating and hitting my face. Then, the car began to roll over repeatedly until it finally came to a stop in a ravine. The pain was instant and devastating. As a nurse, I was fully aware that I was in a critical situation. A humid heat spread through my chest and abdomen as my breathing became increasingly difficult. It was then that I realized I was losing a lot of blood. I reached out for my phone, but to my frustration, my arms seemed to not obey my commands. An intense cold began to take hold of me, and gradually, my vision darkened at the edges. In the last moments of clarity, my thoughts turned to my parents in Brazil, and a deep sadness overwhelmed me as I imagined the pain they would feel at losing their only daughter. Then, darkness fell upon me, a complete and absolute darkness. However, this feeling lasted only a brief moment. Suddenly, I realized that I could see again, but in a completely new way. I was above my destroyed car, watching from above my own body, motionless and bloodied, trapped between the twisted metal. I could see the lights of the cars that stopped, while hurried people ran towards the accident. The sound of a cry for help in Portuguese echoed in the air, while another person spoke on the phone, probably calling an ambulance. I no longer felt pain. In fact, I had lost connection with my body. It was as if I were just a pure consciousness, floating and observing everything from a distance. The fear had disappeared, giving way to a curious sense of detachment. It was as if that tragic scene were unfolding with someone else. I watched closely as the paramedics arrived, ready to act. I heard the precise instructions echoing in the air, and in a moment of tension, one of them exclaimed, "She is in cardiac arrest. Start compressions." I watched, helpless, as they tried to revive my body. Agile hands performed chest compressions, and the defibrillator was being prepared for use. "We have no pulse," one of them said, their voice heavy with urgency. "Continue the compressions," the other replied, determined. It was at that moment that the harsh reality hit me. I was dying. Or perhaps I was already dead. A slight sensation of elevation took over me, as if a gentle current was pulling me upward. As I lifted my eyes, I realized that the darkness of the rainy night was beginning to dissipate, revealing a tunnel of radiant light. The light was not blinding, but incredibly welcoming. It was like the most beautiful dawn I had ever had the privilege of witnessing, only 1,000 times more intense and comforting. I felt an irresistible urge to move towards that light, and with each step, I began to quicken my pace, drawn in by its enveloping brightness. As I got closer, an indescribable peace started to fill my being. All the fears, worries, and anxieties of earthly life dissipated like mist in the sun. It was as if every cell in my body was being filled with a pure and radiant love. I had never experienced anything that compared to this. As I advanced through the tunnel, a soft and harmonious melody began to echo around me, something beyond any sound I had known on earth. It was neither instruments nor human voices. It was a completely transcendental experience. The melody resonated in perfect harmony with the light, as if both were distinct expressions of the same divine essence. It was then that I realized I was not alone on this journey. Around me, there were luminous presences, beings of light that emanated a deep sense of love and safety. Although I couldn't distinguish faces, there was something in my essence that told me those beings were angelic. They seemed to float around me, accompanying me on the journey toward the end of the tunnel, where the light became increasingly intense and radiant. Upon finally emerging from the tunnel, I was confronted with a scene of indescribable beauty. It was not a physical place like those we know on Earth. It was something far beyond that. It was a dimension filled with light, love, and pure consciousness. The colors that presented themselves before me were more vibrant than anything I had ever witnessed. Some of them seemed so extraordinary that they didn't even belong to our earthly spectrum. The landscape around me transformed as my thoughts did, fluid and sensitive to my consciousness. It was in that moment that I heard. Amid that radiant light, a presence stood out. A male figure approached, emanating a love so deep and absolute that it made me fall to my knees. He immediately knew who it was, even without ever having seen him in life. It was Jesus Christ, the Son of God. His presence emanated a unique blend of humanity and divinity. His brown hair flowed gently to his shoulders, giving him an aura of serenity and power. The tanned skin, bathed in the light of the Mediterranean, contrasted with the simplicity of the white tunic he wore. However, this tunic seemed to radiate its own light, almost magical. But it was undoubtedly his gaze that captivated me irrevocably. His eyes, deep and full of love, seemed to hold all the wisdom and compassion of the universe. When he fixed his gaze on me, an intense feeling washed over me. I felt completely seen. Not only that, but also deeply known. He seemed to know every one of my secrets, every flaw, and every doubt I carried. And somehow, almost magically, he loved me exactly as I am. "Sophia," he pronounced, and his voice was something I could never accurately describe. It was gentle yet powerful. It had a familiar tone, but also a supernatural touch. Upon hearing those words, I fell prostrate, trembling uncontrollably. Tears flowed freely down my spiritual face. "Lord," I managed to whisper, "I am not worthy. I am just a nurse who barely attends church." He smiled, and in that moment, it was as if the sun was rising. "Dignified," he replied. "My daughter, dignity was never the requirement. Love is a powerful force." He approached me, extending his hand to help me up. As soon as our fingers touched, a surge of energy coursed through my entire being. It was as if I were being connected to the energy source of the universe. Suddenly, a new light illuminated my mind, revealing truths that went far beyond my human understanding. "Sophia," he said gently, "you have a special purpose. That is exactly why you are here at this moment. There is a message you need to take back." "Back?" I asked, confused. "But I died, didn't I?" He replied calmly, "Your body is being revived at this very moment. You will return, But first, I need to show you something of vital importance. A message that is meant not only for you, but for everyone who is ready to listen. The environment around us has begun to transform. The radiant paradise we knew seemed to fade away, and we found ourselves in a completely different setting. A magical space, situated between earth and sky. Jesus reached out his hand to me, and as I held it, I felt as if all the wisdom of the universe was seeping into my being. Time, in fact, is much shorter than my people can perceive. Jesus spoke, and his voice resonated with an urgency I had never noticed before. The pains that are approaching are intensifying. The signs are visible everywhere. However, many remain asleep. Many are distracted. Many have become indifferent. I wished to ask 1,000 questions, but I realized I could barely articulate a word. The presence of God was so intense and overwhelming that all I could do was listen. "Allow me to share with you 7 signs," he went on. 7 warnings that the time of my return is approaching. Not to instill fear, but to awaken readiness. Not to generate panic, but to encourage preparation. "Lord," I said, "who am I to you?" "I am your beloved." He gently interrupted. "You are the person I chose for this moment. Do you trust me?" In that instant, looking into your eyes and feeling your love wrap around me like a warm ocean, I realized I had no other option. It wasn't out of obligation, but rather because love was driving me. "Yes, sir. I am willing to share everything you wish me to reveal." He smiled once more, and an indescribable sense of peace enveloped me. However, behind that tranquility, there was an urgency, an intuition that what I was about to witness would change everything. "So, allow me to reveal what is to come," he said. "Let me show you the signs that my return is closer than many can imagine." And from that moment on, the visions began to emerge. Jesus extended his hand towards me, and when I connected, it was as if I were linked to the source of power of the universe. Suddenly, I could perceive everything around me, not just with my eyes, but with my spirit. It was as if information was being transmitted directly to my soul. "The first sign," he stated, with a voice that seemed to echo from all corners at once. "It is the acceleration of natural disasters. It is not just about the frequency with which they occur, but also about the intensity and the time in which they manifest." At that moment, images began to appear before me, as if I were watching a movie. Earthquakes that seemed to follow patterns, hurricanes emerging in surprising ways, and volcanoes awakening after centuries of slumber. However, these phenomena were not mere coincidences. There was an underlying rhythm, like the contractions of childbirth, that became increasingly frequent. "Look closer," Jesus said. "Notice what many are overlooking." And in doing so, I truly saw. The disasters were not only more frequent, they occurred in specific sequences, in places that hold deep biblical significance. Earthquakes have been occurring along fault lines near Jerusalem, while volcanic activity is intensifying in areas mentioned in the book of Revelation. Furthermore, storms are forming in patterns that, when mapped, reveal an impressive resemblance to a countdown. "Lord," I whispered, "when?" He replied that the when is not something you should know with certainty. But the season? The season is now. Tell them to watch Israel. Tell them to pay attention to the weather patterns. Tell them that when the earth itself begins to groan more frequently, my return will be near. I was still trying to understand this revelation when the second vision struck me. "The second sign," Jesus continued, "it is the great apostasy unfolding within my church. However, it is not the apostasy that many imagine. I have witnessed countless churches, thousands of them, but something seemed out of place. They were filled with people, the music echoed at high volumes, and the productions were meticulously crafted. But there was no one there, not even a Holy Spirit. It was like contemplating beautiful shells but empty, with no life inside them. Many among my people have exchanged the true encounter for mere distraction. Jesus says, and I could feel the sadness in his voice. They chose comfort over conviction. They preferred prosperity to persecution. They chose popularity over truth. They preach a gospel that demands no sacrifice, no surrender, nor transformation. The scene transformed before me, and I saw pastors before immense crowds. However, their words sounded empty. They proclaimed blessings without mentioning repentance, spoke of love without touching on holiness, and promised heaven without referencing the cross. More, Lord, I cried. There are still churches that remain faithful, pastors who dedicate themselves sincerely. Yes, he stated, and with each passing day, these leaders become more valuable to me. However, the great apostasy is not limited to just distorted teachings. It also reflects the loss of first love. Many who started with fervor have now grown cold. Those who once shone brightly can barely feel the flame today. Meanwhile, believers distract themselves by scrolling through their phones during worship, and instead of coming together in prayer, the community is divided over political issues. Christians who are more fervent in defending their opinions than in seeking the presence of God. This reality broke my heart, and I could see that it was also hurting his heart. It was the third sign. He spoke, and his voice now carried a tone of warning. It is the normalization of what I call abomination. The visions that unfolded before me were painful to witness. Children being taught to accept concepts that go against God's divine plan for humanity. I have witnessed marriage being reconfigured in ways I never imagined. Gender is seen as something fluid, and life, in turn, has been devalued at both of its extremes, among the unborn and the elderly. However, what impressed me the most was not the sin itself, as it has always been present throughout history. It was a moment when the celebration became an imposition, an obligation for those who opposed it. Jesus said that when a society not only tolerates, but demands participation in what I would call sin, something is deeply wrong. When they punish those who fight for justice, when they confuse evil with good and good with evil, that society is already ready to face its judgment. Vicare are losing their jobs because of their children. Children who, in their innocence, are not swayed by destructive ideologies. Pastors are being arrested for simply preaching the truth contained in the Bible. However, I also witnessed something different. A fearless group of believers stood out, refusing to bow down in the face of adversity. They chose suffering at any cost rather than give up their convictions. "These are my faithful," Jesus proclaimed, with pride resonating in his voice. "They are the ones who will shine like stars in the darkness." The fourth sign, he continued, is the convergence between technology and control. This vision was undoubtedly the most terrifying. He imagined a world where every transaction, every movement, and even every word was meticulously monitored and controlled. However, this reality did not manifest as oppression. It was sold as a form of convenience, as a symbol of security and a step towards progress. He observed people forming lines, full of expectation, to receive marks on their hands or foreheads. These brands they believed would allow them to buy and sell, travel, and thus fully integrate into society. Those who opposed became outcasts, unable to adapt to the new system. "The technology is already here," Jesus stated. "The infrastructure is under construction, and people are being prepared to accept it. When the crisis arrives, and it will certainly come, many will beg for the very system that will imprison them." However, amidst this despair, I witnessed something beautiful. I saw people of faith who prepared themselves, who built united communities where they took care of one another, far from the shackles of the system. They were persecuted, it is true, but above all, they were free and overflowing with joy. "It is the fifth sign," Jesus said, and at that moment, I could feel the intensity of the situation growing. It was the emergence of deceptions so persuasive that, if it were possible, even the chosen ones could be led to be deceived. I witnessed false prophets performing impressive miracles. Their signs and wonders seemed absolutely genuine, but in reality, they were leading people away from the true gospel. These religious leaders, with their eloquent words about love and unity, were actually uniting people around lies. The enemy's last deception, without a doubt, will not be something that causes harm, but rather something that will amuse Jesus. It will be an attractive, convincing proposal that, at first glance, seems just, promising peace, unity, and solutions to all of humanity's problems. However, this promise will require them to deny me as the only way to the Father. I have observed the emergence of a global religion, one that blends aspects of Christianity, but at the same time, moves away from the exclusivity of Christ. This new belief proved to be tolerant of everything except the fundamental truth that Jesus is the only way to salvation. Sadly, he stated, "Many will be deceived, for they loved the approval of men more than that of God." Then Jesus continued, "The sixth sign is the supernatural increase of spiritual hunger among the lost." This vision was singular, filled with hope. I have witnessed people around the world suddenly surrendering to a deep longing for spiritual truth. I saw atheists kneeling in prayer, surrendered to the search for something greater. I also saw New Age practitioners abandoning their practices in search of the true Jesus. Muslims and Hindus, with dreams and visions of Christ, eagerly await what is to come. Jesus promised that, before the end arrives, he will pour out his Spirit in ways that have not been seen since Pentecost. The harvest will be abundant, but the time will be brief. Those who are prepared will reap souls in an unprecedented way. I have witnessed ordinary believers being used in extraordinary ways. Healings, miracles, and supernatural evangelism. It was as if the book of Acts was unfolding again, but now on a global scale. "That is why I am sharing these words with you," Jesus said. "Not to instill fear, but to awaken readiness. My people need to be prepared for the greatest harvest in the history of humanity." "The seventh sign," he continued, and his voice took on a deeply solemn tone. It was the final tremor of everything that could be shaken. The last vision I had was the most intense of all. I watched, astonished, as economic systems collapsed overnight. I saw governments crumbling, nations plunging into chaos, and people in panic, as everything they had trusted disintegrated around them. In the heart of chaos, a powerful vision rises, the true church, stronger than ever. When everything around us crumbles, let us remember the words of Jesus, "Only that which is founded on the rock will stand." This decisive moment will be the turning point, separating the wheat from the chaff, the sheep from the goats, the genuine from what is merely appearance. I observed believers who, at first glance, seemed weak and insignificant, but who suddenly revealed an impressive strength and faith. I witnessed once small and struggling churches transforming into true beacons of hope for their communities. I saw the lame inheriting the land, just as he had promised. "More, Lord," I murmured, my voice almost a whisper. "How much time do we have left?" He looked at me with a deep mix of love and sadness. "The signs are intensifying. What used to take decades is now condensed into years. Before we move on, just one request. Please subscribe to the channel. Before we continue, just one request. Please subscribe to our channel. It really helps us keep going. This helps us a lot to continue. What used to take years now boils down to months. The pains of childbirth are approaching quickly. But don't forget," he continued, "I do not come as a thief to my people. Those who are attentive, those who are ready, will notice the signs and prepare themselves. I am coming like a thief, but only for those who are asleep, who are not ready." Then, he did something that completely transformed me. He reached out and touched my face, and in that moment, I felt every drop of his love for humanity flow through me. The love he feels for every human being on earth is truly overwhelming. Tell them, he asked, that these signs are not meant to instill fear, but rather to awaken. Tell them that, even in the darkest moments, I am always by their side. Tell them that what seems to be the end is, in fact, the beginning of all that I promised. At that moment, I found myself in tears, not out of fear, but because of the immense greatness of the love I felt and the weight of what he was asking me to share. Tell them, he continued, that I am coming back soon, not to gather my people but to redeem, not to judge those who belong to me but to claim them. The darkness is about to intensify, but the light is about to shine brighter than ever. The visions began to dissipate, and I found myself once again in that space filled with light and love. Jesus was still there, as real and present as ever. He looked into my eyes and, with a serene expression, asked once more, "Are you going to tell them?" "Yes, sir," I replied. "But how? How can I make them believe? In what way can I help them prepare?" He smiled again, that incredible smile that captivated me so much. "You don't need to make them believe. You only share what you have seen. The Holy Spirit will take care of the rest." He paused, and I realized he was about to share something fundamental. "Tell them," he continued, "that preparation is not just about stocking up on food or building bunkers. Although wisdom in practical matters is valuable, true preparation concerns our relationships with me and among you. Therefore, I invite everyone to reconcile with me at this moment. Ask for forgiveness now. Love each other now. Invite us to share a gospel now, for the time of preparation is running out." And just as quickly as it had appeared, it said goodbye. However, its presence continues to accompany us. Your words were etched in my heart forever. Then, I felt a sudden and violent tug, as if I were being ripped away from that celestial place. In an instant, I found myself back in my wounded body, and the pain was unbearable. Either we were alive, or we were just distant shadows, surrounded by medical equipment. Then a voice echoed, shouting, "We have a pulse." It was coming back. What followed were weeks of recovery in a hospital. I had suffered multiple fractures, internal bleeding, and damage to several organs. The doctors stated that it was a true miracle that I managed to survive. In fact, I was clinically dead for almost 7 minutes before they were able to revive me. During my recovery, I couldn't shake off the experience I had lived. Every detail, every carefully chosen word by Jesus, remained vivid in my mind. It wasn't like a dream that fades upon waking. It was something deeper, more real and vivid than any memory I had of this world. I decided to share my experience with the nurses and doctors who were taking care of me. As I spoke, I noticed that some averted their gaze, visibly uncomfortable. Others listened to me politely, but it was clear that they were skeptical. However, there was a nurse named Margarita who stood out. She listened to me with genuine interest and even encouraged me to share more about my story. It was Margarita who gifted me a Bible. "If what you saw is true," she told me, "it must be in harmony with the Word of God." So I dove into reading with eagerness, starting with the Gospels, and then exploring Revelation. I was amazed to discover passages that exactly corroborated what Jesus had revealed to me. In Matthew 24, he mentions the increase of natural disasters, comparing them to birth pains. In 2 Timothy 3, Paul depicts how people in the last days would have only the appearance of godliness, without the true essence. In 2 Thessalonians, there is a warning about the great apostasy that is approaching. In Revelation 13, John reveals the dreaded mark of the beast, a sign that will make it impossible to buy or sell without it. When I finally got discharged from the hospital, 3 months after the accident, I realized that I had become a completely different person. Not only in the physical aspect, where I was still limping and needed months of physical therapy, but I also felt a spiritual transformation. My faith, which was once merely cultural and superficial, has now become a deep and personal connection with Jesus Christ. I started attending a small evangelical church near my apartment in Lisbon. The pastor, an elderly man named Emmanuel, welcomed me with open arms. As I shared my experience with him, I realized that he not only listened attentively, but also embraced my words with respect, without dismissing or ridiculing what I had to say. Instead of simply offering comfort, he joined me in prayer and guided me in reflecting on how I could use my testimony to impact the lives of others. "Sophia," he told me, "experiences like yours are rare and valuable, but they also carry a tremendous responsibility. Not everyone will believe you, and some may even laugh at your message. However, if God truly placed this in your heart, it is essential that you share it, regardless of the consequences." And that's exactly what I decided to do. I started in small groups at church, then moved on to youth meetings, and finally participated in larger conferences. At first, I felt nervous and insecure, but as I continued to share, a new confidence began to emerge within me. I realized that it wasn't about me, but rather about the message that Jesus had entrusted to me. What really surprised me was the way people reacted. Many people were deeply impacted. Some were so moved that they cried upon hearing about the love of Jesus that I experienced. Others felt a strong calling to renew their commitment to Christ. There were also those who decided to make drastic changes in their lives, breaking off harmful relationships, abandoning addictions, and leaving careers that took them away from God. I began to notice the signs that Jesus revealed to me, manifesting clearly in the world around us. The increase in natural disasters was undeniable. Earthquakes, hurricanes, and wildfires, all seeming more frequent and intense than they had ever been. The news was filled with examples of the third sign, the normalization of abomination. Meanwhile, the control technology, which represents the fourth sign, was advancing by leaps and bounds. However, what truly ignited a flame of hope in my heart was the observation of the sixth sign, which manifested in the growing increase of spiritual hunger. During my meetings, I noticed that people who had never shown interest in God before began to ask questions, eager for answers. Disillusioned young people with materialism were in search of something deeper and more meaningful for their lives. Even those who were friends of God showed themselves open to dialogues about spirituality in a way they had never experienced before. Today, 2 years after my near-death experience, I continue to share the message that Jesus entrusted to me. I left my career as a nurse to fully dedicate myself to this ministry. Since then, I have been traveling through Portugal and Spain, and occasionally, I return to Brazil to share my testimony. Furthermore, I wrote a book about my experience, which has already been translated into several languages. Not everything has been a bed of roses. I face criticism, skepticism, and even distrust from some Christian leaders who question the veracity of my experience. There are those who accuse me of seeking attention or money, while others claim that it is all just hallucinations caused by a lack of oxygen in the brain. However, none of this shakes the firmness of my conviction. I am aware of what I witnessed, the people I encountered, and the mission that was entrusted to me. If you are reading or listening to these words at this moment, I want you to know that Jesus sent me back for your sake. He revealed those 7 signs to me not to instill fear, but to awaken readiness, not to provoke panic, but to inspire preparation. If you have not yet surrendered your life to Jesus Christ, do not wait any longer. The signs are intensifying, and time is precious. However, His love for you is infinite, and His arms are always open, ready to welcome you. Remember, you don't need to get your life in order before coming to Him. You don't need to feel worthy. Come to Him just as you are. If you are a believer who has drifted away, if your convictions have become just empty gestures, or if you have lost the fervor of your first love, this is the moment to awaken. It's time to reassess and give due importance to your relationship with God. Start praying as if your life depended on it. Read the Word as if your life depended on it. And why is this so crucial? If you are a pastor or leader in the church, remember, it is essential to preach the truth, all of the truth. It's not just about the comfortable parts. It is crucial for people to understand what sin and repentance are, as well as the true cost of following Jesus. They need to know both your holiness and your love. The time for a diluted gospel has come to an end. If you have ever felt hurt by the church, by Christians, or by religious people, I want to express my deep solidarity. I am sorry for the pain you carry. However, I ask that you do not allow human failures or the absence of divine love to overshadow your faith. Remember that Jesus is not like those who have hurt you. He is love in its purest form, grace in its most complete essence, truth in its fullness. Give him a chance. If you are going through challenging times, facing financial difficulties, health problems, conflicts in relationships, or dealing with depression and anxiety, I want you to know that Jesus is attentive to you. He knows your pain and is about to return, bringing with him the promise of new possibilities. Hold on tight. Don't give up. Your redemption is on the way. I will never forget those last words that Jesus told me before I returned. What may seem like the end at first glance is, in fact, the beginning of everything I promised. This is the hope I wish to share with you. Yes, difficult times are approaching. Yes, the world may become darker. However, for those who belong to Jesus, the best is yet to come. We are not waiting for the end of the world. We are looking forward to the beginning of a new world. We are not facing defeat. We are approaching victory. The King is coming back. And when he arrives, every tear will be gently wiped away. Every mistake will be corrected. Every broken fragment will be restored. Death will be defeated forever. Sin will cease to exist. And we will see him face to face, just as I heard that magical night in Lisbon. I wish to see him there. I want to celebrate by his side in his kingdom, worshiping together around his throne. However, this requires an immediate decision. It is necessary to act now, while there is still time. Do not wait. Do not hesitate. Do not assume that you will have another opportunity. The signs are everywhere. The pains of labor are intensifying, and time is running out. However, his love is eternal. His grace is more than enough. His arms are always open, ready to welcome. Come to Jesus. Come now. Come as you are. He is eager for your arrival. Since I returned, I have been paying attention to the signs that Jesus revealed to me as they unfold before our eyes. The intensification of natural disasters has become undeniable. In the past 2 years, we have witnessed devastating natural disasters that have marked different parts of the world. In Turkey, Japan, and Central America, the effects have been alarming. In the Pacific, we face the fury of intense storms. Furthermore, unprecedented wildfires ravaged Australia and the Americas, leaving a trail of destruction. Finally, catastrophic floods have hit Europe and Asia, causing widespread damage and suffering. As Jesus mentioned, there is a pattern that few can notice. The second sign, the apostasy within the church, is becoming increasingly evident. We see large ministries drifting away from fundamental biblical truths, all in the name of cultural relevance. Amidst immense congregations that provide stunning entertainment, there is a noticeable lack of true spiritual challenge. Jesus revealed to me that many have exchanged the authentic encounter with God for shallow and fleeting emotional experiences. The third sign, the normalization of abomination, is advancing at alarming rates. In various parts of the world, laws are being passed that not only allow, but also celebrate and promote practices that go against the divine plan established by God. Those who are willing to defend biblical values have faced a growing wave of hostility, both social and legal. Pastors see their ministries being threatened. Teachers lose their jobs, and doctors, in turn, face the revocation of their licenses, all for remaining faithful to their Christian convictions. The fourth signal reveals an intriguing convergence between technology and control. To understand this, one only needs to observe the advances in biometric identification, digital currencies, and social monitoring systems. The infrastructure that will support the system of the mark of the beast is being erected right before our eyes. However, most people celebrate these innovations and conveniences without realizing the profound prophetic implications they may bring. The fifth sign, the growing deception, is undoubtedly the most subtle and dangerous of all. I observe false teachers gaining an impressive number of followers, while religious and concrete movements attract crowds. Furthermore, there is increasing pressure to dilute the exclusivity of Christ in the name of a supposed spiritual unity. As Jesus warned me, the final deception does not present itself in a clearly evil form. On the contrary, it is beautiful and seductive. However, even in the face of all these alarming signs, what truly gives me hope is the sixth sign, the supernatural increase of spiritual hunger. I have observed a fascinating phenomenon. People who were once indifferent to faith now find themselves asking profound questions about God. Atheists, who once appeared firm in their convictions, are beginning to confess doubts about their atheism. Young people, in turn, are rejecting the emptiness of materialism and embarking on a sincere search for spiritual truth. In regions where the gospel faces barriers, such as in certain areas of the Middle East, Central Asia, and North Africa, stories of dreams and visions of Jesus are multiplying in an impressive way. As for the seventh sign, which represents the final upheaval of everything that can be shaken, we can already perceive its indications in the growing economic, political, and social instabilities that affect the entire world. Systems that once seemed unshakable are now beginning to reveal their fragilities. Trust in traditional institutions is at a historic decline. Amid this scenario, I perceive the true church emerging. Not the large religious institutions, but the authentic body of Christ, which is starting to awaken. In small groups, in house churches, and in annual faith communities, we are witnessing a rebirth of radical dependence on God. Fervent prayer becomes the beating heart of these gatherings, while serious discipleship establishes itself as a fundamental foundation. Everyone is preparing to face challenging times, following the example that Jesus revealed to me during my own experience. Recently, I returned to the place where an accident nearly cost me my life. I stood by the side of the road, watching the embankment where my car had overturned. To my surprise, I found a small memorial adorned with flowers, a tribute to that very significant moment. It was not just for me, but for all the people who knew my story and allowed themselves to be touched by it. While I was there, immersed in reflections about everything that happened since that fateful night, I felt the presence of Jesus once again. Although it wasn't as intense as during my near-death experience, this presence was, in fact, more real and comforting. I recalled its words. The time for preparation is running out. I don't know exactly how much time we have left. Jesus was clear in stating that we should not know the day or the hour. However, he also taught us to recognize the season. All the signs point to the fact that we are in the final season before his return. For this reason, I made the decision to dedicate the rest of my life to sharing this message. I do not seek fame or recognition. Many ridicule me and dismiss my experience, treating it as a hallucination or invention. I share this message because I was commissioned by Jesus Christ himself. The love I experienced in his presence is so deep and transformative that a valuable lesson I have learned throughout my journey is that eternity exists, Jesus is true, and time is precious. The decisions we make in this moment shape our eternal destiny. The way we live, our faithfulness, our obedience, and our love have a meaning that transcends time and endures forever. While I was recovering in the hospital, a sign on the wall caught my attention. It was a verse from Jeremiah 29:11 that said, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." These words resonated within me, bringing comfort and renewing my faith in better days. this verse took on a new meaning for me. The future and the hope that God has in store for us transcend this fleeting life. He is preparing for us something immensely greater and more glorious than we can even imagine. As Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 2:9, "The things which eye has not seen, and ear has not heard, and which have not entered into the heart of man, are those that God has prepared for those who love him." I can assert with conviction the truth of these words. What I experienced during those brief minutes on the other side was merely a glimpse of the glory that awaits the children of God. Therefore, my testimony carries no fear, but rather hope. It is not a message of condemnation, but an invitation. Jesus is coming back, and he wants you to be prepared. It is not about escaping tribulation by stockpiling food or building underground bunkers. What really matters is being spiritually ready, cultivating an intimate relationship with him. How did he speak to me so clearly? Tell them it is time to reconcile with ego now. Tell them it is time to forgive now. Tell them they must love now. Tell them it is time to share the gospel now. The time for preparation is running out. This is the message that Jesus entrusted me to share with you, a message that carries not only a sense of urgency, but also an indescribable hope. The same Jesus who held my hand and revealed these 7 signs is with open arms, ready to welcome you. He knows every aspect of your life, every mistake made, every open wound, every battle faced. And yet, he loves you with a love that goes beyond anything this world can offer. The invitation is made. The decision is in your hands. We are in the final moments that precede the return of the King. What will you do with this revelation? It is a profound and transformative testimony. The Bible warns us in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 26 and 27. "Once again, I will shake not only the earth, but also the heavens, so that everything that can be shaken may be removed, and thus only what is unshakable may remain." I deeply thank you, Sophia, for providing us with this intimate and urgent experience. And to you who have followed us this far, may the blessings of the Eternal always be upon your life. May this video serve as a warning, but also an invitation to repentance, hope, and spiritual preparation. We will meet again in the next video, and until then, stay vigilant, pray, and remain steadfast. The King is coming back.